أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, brothers and sisters, and welcome to our 30th session. Alhamdulillah. Last week 2 weeks ago we started the Imammat section of the book. Last week we went through article number 86 of the book that we're covering, and that one article took the whole session up because he covers a lot there, and there were some things that there were some ideas that I also wanted to share and thoughts that I wanted to share with you as well. So we spent a whole session on one article last week. This sometimes happens in the Hawza too. Like, you'll have one page. You'll go for an hour of class, and then only one page or half a page, or sometimes even 2 lines are only covered. Because there's a lot to cover in that session, or in that one line or one page. Anyway, so last time we went through Article 86. In Article 86, what he covered was that after we're done with this idea of, okay, it doesn't make sense for the Prophet not to have actually addressed this issue of who is to succeed him, whether it's the people that have to decide that, or if the Prophet himself wants to choose somebody. It doesn't make sense for him not to say anything. So he must have said something. So let's go to the texts and the sources and see if he did say something. This was where we left off, or where we started the discussion last week. And so Ayatollah Subhani here, he says, if you look at the sources and the scripture and texts out there, you will find that yes, there are things that everyone of the Sunni and Shia school agree on that the Prophet said. Now, what the Prophet was implying when he said certain things and what he had in mind exactly, it will be disputed once again. But the fact that he did say certain things, yes, is agreed upon. So 5 things, I think, if I remember correctly, he covered last week, or in this article. 5 that we talked about. The first of them was Hadith of Yawm ad-Dar. These 5 hadiths, by the way, that he brings are unanimously accepted by both schools of thought, that he did say these. Now, as I said, what he meant by them might be up for dispute, but we know that these words were said. Hadith of Yawm ad-Dar had to do with the beginning of the call of the Holy Prophet and him inviting the people to Islam, where the Quran said, وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ, that you need to now go, after 3 years of doing what you were doing discreetly, now it's time to actually make the invitation to Islam open and public. So go tell your close relatives. And in that session where he's sitting with his relatives and telling them what his mission is, he says, which of you is willing to aid me so that he can be, as a result of that, he can be my successor, my Khalifa, my Wazir, my Wasi after me. Words like that have been used. And so out of 3 times Imam Ali stood up and he said, I'm willing to help you. No one else stood up but Imam Ali, stood up. So this is one where then the Prophet after that, he said, Inna hadha akhi wa wasiyi wa khalifati fikum, that this is my brother, my wasi, the one who's going to carry out my wishes after me, and khalifati, my khalifa and successor after me amongst you. That's one hadith. The second hadith was the hadith of Manzila, where the Prophet tells Imam Ali alayhi salam, the same way Prophet Harun was a wazir to Prophet Musa, you are a wazir to me. The only difference is that Prophet Harun was a prophet, you're not a prophet, but you hold all the other responsibilities that Prophet Harun had. And Prophet Harun, as we all know, had all the responsibilities of Prophet Musa. Yes, Prophet Musa was the one who initiated the call to God. He was the one initially chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But after that, Prophet Harun had a lot of responsibilities just like Prophet Musa. And when Prophet Musa was absent, who was there to take his place? Prophet Harun was. So this is also another hadith that is used. Hadith of Safina, the hadith of the ark. Safina means ark or big ship. That how the Prophet said that the example of my Ahlul Bayt amongst you is like that of the ark of Noah in his people. Whoever ascends that and rides that ark, Naja, is delivered. And whoever falls short of going up that ark, will be destroyed and will drown and die. So this hadith also shows that, okay, you have to follow. If you follow the Ahlul Bayt. Not just love them, follow them as well. And come on their ship, so to speak, then you're saved. Other than that, you're not going to be saved. Hadith number 4, and I'm going through this very quickly. We discussed all of these last week, and I also made this point very clear last week that just because we're using these hadiths doesn't mean that everyone has to now go by our understanding of them, but this is our version of these hadiths and how we understand them, that they are very clear in pointing out that Imam Ali is the one to be succeeding the Holy Prophet. Number 4, hadith of Amanul Ummah. That how the Prophet said that the stars, the same way the stars are a safety for the people of the inhabitants of the earth from drowning, my Ahlul Bayt are the safety of my nation from division. So if there's any tribe out there who goes against my Ahlul Bayt, they will become divided. And as a result of becoming divided, then they will be destroyed, or it says they will become Hizb of Iblis, and the party of Iblis. The fifth hadith is the most famous one, of course, that we spent the most time on last week. I know the battery, it says battery level low of our camera, but I'll just keep speaking and then you can hear me until we fix that. The fifth hadith, it says that the fifth hadith is the hadith of Thaqalain, where the Holy Prophet, he says in this very, very famous hadith that I am leaving behind 2 weighty things, and those 2 weighty things are Kitabullah wa Ahli Bayti, that they are the Book of God and my Ahlul Bayt. And so, how this hadith implies that they are the ones to be followed, just like the Book of God is to be followed. I'm going to skip all of that, okay? And I'm going to just say this, that this hadith has books written on it. We have many books written on this hadith. We have lots of back and forth, of course, with other schools of thought regarding this as well. There's different versions of this hadith, different wordings of this hadith that I went through last week in depth. And the point I tried to make was this in the end, that brothers and sisters of the Shia school have to understand, just because the wording is not going to always be in their favor, it doesn't mean that this hadith cannot be used. No, it can still be used to prove the point that the Shia school is trying to make. It'll just take some more work. Anyway, so last week I went through all these different books that have this hadith, from all the sihah that have mentioned it and the musnads that have mentioned this hadith. I'm not going to go back to that either. Anyone who wants can listen to last week's recording. Alright. Having said that, now we make it to today's session, or today's topic, and that's article number 88. Article number 88, let me just make sure. No, excuse me, 87, yes. Article 87. Article 87 talks about how we have, in addition to those 5 hadiths that were mentioned, we have one more hadith that is the most famous, that the Shia school sees as the most famous hadith regarding how the Prophet appointed Imam Ali by name after him to be his successor. Now, this is also something that we have many, many books written on and lots of discussion on. Hadith of Ghadir. I'm just going to go through what the book is talking about. Try not to add too much, although I might add stuff here and there. It says that in the previous hadith, sometimes, they were generally speaking, like some of them would say Ahlul Bayt. They didn't say Imam Ali by name. But then when it comes to hadith of Ghadir, Imam Ali is mentioned by name. What is the Prophet trying to do here? The Prophet, what he's trying to do is leave no room anymore for anybody to deny the fact that Ali ibn Abi Talib is going to be his successor. Now, you all have probably heard this story before. I'm going to read off of the book. By the way, these recordings that we have, they're going to be archived, they're going to be kept for whoever comes in the future even and is asking about, to learn about Shiaism. these recordings might be things that they will benefit from and they can use to learn more about Shiism. So there might be some things that for some of our Muslim brothers and sisters or Shia brothers and sisters might be repetitive, and they've heard it a ton of times already, and I understand that. But I just want you to know that we're covering all of this I'm covering all of this because first of all, it's in the book, but second of all, because how do we know in the future what the needs are going to be? Sometimes someone might look for that one specific session that was on the hadith of Ghadir, they might tune into this one, or listen to the recording, later. Alright, so Article 87 says, in order that his message on this issue, in order that the message of the Prophet on this issue of Khilafah and successorship reach the ears of all Muslims far and wide, and in order to foreclose any possibility of doubt or hesitation on this score and in this regards, the Prophet halted the great mass of pilgrims returning from the Hajj at a place called Ghadir Khumm. So that's what this story is all about. The Prophet is returning from his final Hajj. He stops the people in the middle of the way at one of those junctions that the pilgrims would come to go towards Mecca. He stops them there on the way back from Mecca. And the place is called Ghadir Khumm, telling his companions that he had received a command from God to deliver a message to them. Okay. This divine message pertained to the accomplishment of a momentous obligation, one so great that if he did not carry this out, the Prophet would not have performed his duty. All in all, yes, the wording of the Quran is a little serious here, brothers and sisters. As the Quran says, O Messenger, make known that which hath been revealed to thee from thy Lord. For if thou do it not, thou wilt not have conveyed his message. God will protect thee from the people. Okay, so there's something that the Prophet has to mention that is super important, to the extent that if he doesn't, it's as if he has not delivered the message of God. And it's also something so significant and sensitive and touchy that there is a fear that the people will do something against the Prophet as a result of him making this announcement. But the Quran is telling the Prophet not to worry and that he will be protected from these people. Okay. So it says, a pulpit was erected. He stood upon it and then proclaimed, shortly I shall be answering to my Lord's call. Answering labbaik to my Lord's call. What will you say of me? In reply, the people assembled and said, we bear witness that you have conveyed unto us the religion of God. You wished only for our well-being, and you exerted yourself to the utmost. You did whatever you could. May God bestow the best of rewards upon you. So the Prophet tells them, hey, I'm about to leave this world. If I'm leaving this world, I want you to tell me, what do you think of me? Did I do what I was supposed to do? And everyone says, yes, you did. Okay. Then he asked, and it's important to go through these details, by the way, because they give context to the main statement that the Prophet will make later. Then he asked, do you testify to the oneness of God, to my message and the reality of the day of resurrection? All those present so testified. All those present so testified. Then he said, I shall enter the pool of Kawthar before you. Take care how you treat two precious things that I am leaving behind. Someone asked what was meant by the two precious things. The Prophet replied, the one is the book of God and the other is my progeny. And God, the subtle, the aware, has told me that these two will not be separated until the day of judgment, when they shall join me. Do not come too close to these two things, lest you perish. And do not stray too far from them, lest you perish. Like, don't fall ahead of them, don't fall behind of them. Follow suit, or else you'll perish. The Prophet tells these people. Okay, so according to this account, he also said the hadith of Thaqalain on this occasion. But that's not all, brothers and sisters. He goes on, it says, then he clasped and took the hand of Ali, raising it high so that all could see the two hands together, and said the following, O people, who has a greater claim over the believers than their own souls? Who has more authority over themselves? This is a very, very important question that puts things more and more into context so that we can understand what the Prophet was trying to say here when he says his famous statement that we'll get to. He first asks a question. He says, okay, I want to ask you, when it comes to yourselves, O people, Who has more authority, me or you? And of course the people answered, you, O Prophet. You have more authority over us ourselves. Our bodies, our souls belong to ourselves, yet you have more authority over us. Okay. So once that has been made clear, the Prophet then said, truly God is my Mawla, and I am the Mawla of the believers. And I have a greater authority over them than their own selves. After he said this, he said 3 times, for whoever has me as his Mawla, Allah is his Mawla. 3 times he said this. Ali is his Mawla. Whoever I have authority over them, making me their Mawla, Ali is their Mawla now, after me. He said this 3 times. Then he said, my Lord, O Allah, be the friend of whoever is Ali's friend, and the enemy of whoever is Ali's enemy. Love whoever loves him, and hate whoever hates him. Help whoever helps him, and abandon whoever abandons him, wherever he may be. Let those who are present convey this to those who are absent. The Prophet told the people, I need you to let those who were absent also know. Okay, so those of you who are here, who the Shia believe were in the thousands, those who are here have to let those who weren't here know about what happened today and what was said today. Yeah, so this is Article 87. Regarding the story of Ghadir. Now, I just read the translation, okay? But what's more important is the Arabic itself. Because the Arabic, you can see the connection between the different lines that the Prophet is mentioning. First he says, أَلَسْتَ أَوْلَى بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ مِنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ. Do I have not more authority over the believers than themselves? What's the word that he uses? أَوْلَى, which comes from wilaya, an authority. So there he says, who has authority over them? Then he uses the same root to introduce Imam Ali alayhi salam. He says, whoever I am his Mawla. That was Awla, this is Mawla. They come from the same root. Then Ali is his Awla. Okay, is his Mawla. What does that imply, brothers and sisters? That Mawla, which shares the same root as Awla that came in the previous statement, these are all the same. They're talking about the same concept. If Awla over there meant authority, here when the Prophet says, whoever I am his Mawla, Ali is his Mawla, that means whoever I have authority over them, Ali has authority over them. Okay? This is a very strong context clue to understand what the Prophet said. Why am I saying all of this? Because people have said, some people out there have said that we don't know what the Prophet exactly meant by this word Mawla. Yeah. And as a result, we don't know what he was trying to do. And so we can't just use this as proof that Ali ibn Abi Talib is the one to succeed the Holy Prophet and has authority over all the believers after the Holy Prophet. Okay. I'm not going to open that up more though. I'm going to leave it at that. Let's move on to Article 88. And if you have any questions, make sure to just type them here in the comment section. I'll get back to you, or I'll answer your questions if you have any. Okay. Article 88 now. So Article 87 had to do with the whole story itself, before we actually get into some analysis of this story. Article 88 now gets into some analysis. Article 88 wants to talk about 2 things. Number 1, the sanad of this hadith, and number 2, the dalala, it's called, of this hadith. Sanad means the chain of narrators of this hadith. Dalala means what we can get out of this hadith that the Prophet is saying. What did the Prophet mean by this? What is this hadith implying? Okay. Regarding the hadith, the chain of narrators of this hadith, and how sure we can be that the Prophet actually said these words, regardless of what he meant by them. For that, he says we have tawatur. And tawatur is something, brothers and sisters, that I explained before, and most of you probably are familiar with anyway, that this hadith is not a hadith that has been related to us by 1 or 2 people. This hadith is a hadith that has been related to us by so many people that we become sure that it actually happened, that the Prophet actually said these words. Not one person, not 2 people, not 10 people, not 20 people. Many, many people have narrated it. Now, I just want to share with you some numbers that Allama Amini, the great Ayatollah Amini, provides as a result of his extensive research into this hadith. He says that this hadith has been narrated by 110 of the Sahaba, companions of the Prophet, 89 individuals of the Tabi'een, those who came after the Sahaba. They never saw the Prophet, but they saw the companions of the Prophet. And by 3,500 of the ulama and muhaddithin, Islamic scholars and hadith narrators. Yes? These are the people who have narrated this hadith. So if such a high number of people, who will not always will be from the same school of thought as the Shia school, or the Shia people, when they're all saying that they have this hadith, then we become 100% sure they're not all mistaken, or they can't all be lying, you know. Okay, so that's what he says in his book of Al-Ghadir. By the way, those of you who don't know, Allama Amini, Ayatollah, his name was Abdul Hussein Al-Amini. Yes, he is. Let me just make sure that. Yes, Abdul Hussein Al-Amini. He has an 11-volume work called Al-Ghadir, where he goes through everything regarding this hadith. I don't think that's been translated to English. I don't think it has, but even if it has been, it's a hard book for some people, and so that's a very precious book that the Shia school is honored to have. Anyway, that's regarding the chain of narrators and whether or not this hadith was actually said. These words were actually said by the Prophet. Yeah, when you had 110 companions, 89 tabi'een, and 3,500 ulama saying it, then it's not. You can't say all of them must be wrong, or all of them are mistaken, or all of them are lying. No, that's not how things work. So we're 100% sure, and no one even from the Sunni school has even doubted that. Okay, certain words were said in Ghadir Khumm by the Holy Prophet after his final Hajj. But the more important part is understanding what was meant by these words that were said. Just because certain words are said doesn't mean that you can claim now that what my ideology is proven by these words that have been said. No, that's not true. Just because words have been said doesn't mean that what you believe is what those words were trying to say. So you have to prove that as well. And that's where some people will say that we don't believe that this hadith is talking about successorship of the Holy Prophet and who is to come after him, etc., etc. So here Ayatollah Subhani speaks about this, and he says he just from the get-go he's assuming that we all know probably that there are people out there who believe that Mawla in this context doesn't mean master, it might mean friend. That the Holy Prophet was saying that Ali is my friend and I am his friend and I love him so much and you guys better love him too. That's how some people look at this hadith and what this hadith is trying to say. I'm going to read off of what Ayatollah Subhani says in response to this, that Mawla here doesn't mean a person with authority, just like how we explained in the previous article, but rather it means something else. What he says is that we allude to some of this evidence below, that Mawla here must mean something greater than just friend. Number 1, he says, upon the occasion of Ghadir, the Prophet halted the caravan of pilgrims at a place that had neither water nor pasture, in the middle of an extremely hot day. The heat was so intense that those present wrapped one part of their cloak over their heads and the other part beneath them to protect themselves against the heat. Yes? In such circumstances, the halt must have signified that the Prophet meant to speak about a matter of the utmost importance for the guidance of the nation, a key address that was to affect the destiny of the community. And indeed, what could be more crucial to the destiny of the nation of Islam than the issue of determining the successor to the Prophet, an issue which, properly resolved, would be a source of unity for the Muslims and of the safeguarding of the community. So number 1, he says, Let me explain that a little bit. Number one reason that here Mawla doesn't mean something just, something insignificant. Oh, he just wanted to let people know that you should love Ali ibn Abi Talib. No. He says that let's look at what the Prophet did, right? To be able to prove this, to not prove, but like to make this statement to the people. He stopped the caravan of those pilgrims in the middle of the day, in the hot desert, where there's no means of life. If he's stopping everybody just to let them know something very normal, something insignificant, that is something a person that doesn't have sanity does. You don't stop everybody in the middle of a hot desert, right? Make them stand under the heat and listen to you, when all you want to tell them is that, hey people, water is made up of H2O, or something like that, some random fact. No. You do that when you want really you want them to pay attention, and it is something so important that you have no choice but to hold them in such a place to let them know. That's the first point he's making. The second point he's making is this. He says, before expressing Ali's status of wilayah, or saying that he's Mawla, getting from the Muslims acknowledgement that he had indeed conveyed the Prophet spoke of three principles of Tawheed: prophecy and afterlife. Okay, so before he said Man kuntu Mawla fa hadha Aliyun Mawla, then whoever I am his Mawla, Ali is his Mawla after me. He talked about the three main principles of Islam and the usul ad-din: Tawheed, Nubuwwah and prophethood, and Ma'ad and the afterlife. And he got from the Muslims acknowledgement that he had conveyed the divine message. Remember when he said, "O people, if I was to ask you of myself, of me, what have I done for you? What is your response going to be?" What was their response? They said, "You conveyed the message. You didn't fall short. You did whatever you could, and you made whatever effort you could." By associating his message, okay, so he wants to deliver a message now. After he gets all of this, he gets the people to admit to all these things. He wants to deliver a message, right? It says by associating his message that he wanted to deliver with the elicited confession by the Muslims of these three usul ad-din and principles, he indicated the importance of the message he was about to deliver, the momentous nature of the issue he was to raise. It could not be about something so trivial as a recommendation to be the friend of some person. Think about it, brothers and sisters. Not only do you stop everyone in the middle of the day, in the hot desert, no means of life, then start asking them about their beliefs. Do you believe in the oneness of God? Do you believe in prophethood, in the afterlife? And not only that, asking them, what have I done for you? What kind of person have I been for you, O people of the Muslim Ummah? And them responding that you've done everything that you could. And all of that just to say something as insignificant as, hey, people, Ali is a good person, love him. Now, before I go on, I do have to say this, that those who are not from the Shi'i school of thought will have answers to what we're saying right now. They won't say that the Prophet just wanted to tell people that, hey, you need to be the friends of Ali, just randomly. No, something had happened before this in Yemen between Ali ibn Abi Talib and Khalid bin Walid and one other person from the tribe of Bani Aslam. I forgot his name. Buraid, I think his name was Buraid al-Aslami. Because of a little bit of a little fallout that they had with Ali ibn Abi Talib in Yemen, the Prophet wanted to remind everybody that, hey, you gotta love Ali, you gotta be his friend. That's what some will say in response to us saying that why would the Prophet need to just say that he's my friend in such circumstances? But of course the Shia has answers to that as well. But I'm just letting you know that it's not like, oh, okay, look, so the Shia just makes sense and everyone else just doesn't know what they're talking about. No, people will have answers and we will also have answers to their answers back and forth. That's just scholarship works. That's how academia works. So he's given us two reasons so far that, look, it can't just be something regular that the Prophet wants to tell the people. Reason number 3. At the beginning of the discourse, the Prophet spoke of his impending death, thus indicating his concern over the state of his ummah would find itself in after his passing away. What could be more appropriate than providing for his followers a means of charting their course according to his design through the dangerous stormy seas that lay before them and the fitnas that lay before them? Yeah. So another thing that he's saying here is, in addition to the other two things that we talked about, is that, look, when you tell people in the beginning of your discourse, of your speech and your sermon, that, hey people, I am leaving this dunya soon. The moment you say that, it means that you are getting the people ready to say something very, very important. You won't tell people that your death is close and then want to tell them just a random fact, okay? Another one, number 4. Before conveying the divine message concerning Ali, he spoke of his own quality of being a Mawla. This one's very important. His Mawlawiyah, yes? And his own precedence, Awlawiyah. So there are different things that the Prophet is talking about here. There are different things the Prophet is talking about when it comes to his authority. He uses the word, this Mawla, Awla, all these different things. Awlawiyya, Mawlawiyya, these are all things that are discussed first, before he even talks about Ali ibn Abi Talib. Then he says, God is my Mawla, and I am the Mawla of the believers, and I am closer to them than they are to their own selves. He says all of this. What does that show about Ali ibn Abi Talib? This shows that Ali's status as Mawla derives from the same root as the Mawlawiyya and Awlawiyya and authority of the Prophet. It is by divine decree then that Ali's Awlawiyya was confirmed. It says, it is by divine decree then that Ali's authority was confirmed. Yes. So this one is what I talked about before, number 4. Number 4 is talking about that, look at the context. When the Prophet is talking about his authority and how it's God-given and God has authority and all of that, yes? Then he moves to Ali and says he also has authority. He also has his awlawiyya. Okay, well, it shows that that authority that Ali has comes from the same root that the Prophet's authority comes from. Once again, these are all, we're just discussing these in a nutshell. Each of these has to be elaborated on more at the right time. Okay. Number 5. Number 5 says, after conveying the message, the Prophet instructed those present to report it to those who were absent. Once again, if it's something important, you make sure that those who are present tell those who are absent. If it's a random fact that you want to share with the people, it's not that important for people that haven't made it or who are not present to know about it. Okay, so here he brought 5 reasons why he believes that when the Prophet said those words of whoever I am his Mawla, Ali is his Mawla after me, that this, what is meant by it, is one who has authority over everyone else. There are more things to say here, as I said. We're skipping a lot. Even these 5 things that were mentioned, they weren't explained properly enough, I think. But this is just to get an idea of how the Shia school looks at this matter. Okay. Article number 89. Article number 89 says, look, we covered different things. We said that intellectually and rationally speaking, it doesn't make sense for the Prophet not to appoint somebody. We talked about how not only intellectually and rationally, but also when we look at the books and the sources and the texts out there, we find hadiths that talk about the same thing as well. But in addition to that, he says we have more even. It's not just hadiths, it's historical accounts as well that show that the successorship of the Prophet is something that has to be divinely determined and appointed. Yeah, it's not something that just can be left to the people. Well, what is that? Let me read for you what he says here. And the reason for that being, this is also a good point he makes, I like this point, is that the people that were against Islam and the enemies of Islam, they had really given up. I mean, they had brought out their white flags, so to speak, and said, hey, we just can't defeat this guy because he just makes so much sense. And he has the miracles to back up what he claims, and the Quran and all that kind of stuff. First they would call him crazy, and then they would call him, I don't know, a poet. All these things. They tried everything they could. A sahir, a sorcerer, and all of that. When none of that worked and people were just joining the Holy Prophet, the only solution that the enemies had left was that the Prophet dies and passes away. Yeah? They couldn't kill him in the battlefield. People like Ali ibn Abi Talib were there to protect the Holy Prophet. And so the only thing that's left really is, okay, let's just wait for him to die. And once he dies, this figure, this charismatic, lovable, knowledgeable figure, once he's gone, the religion is revolving around him. And so there's nothing that we need to worry about after him. Because when the focal point of this religion goes, the religion will go with him. Finished. He makes this very nice point. He says, when we look at history, this is what we find. Okay? And then he says, he gives a story I want to read to you. He says on page, or in article 89, on page, here it is. Yeah. It is for this reason. Oh, excuse me. Yeah. For instance, the chief of, page 108, the chief of the tribe of Banu Amir came to the Prophet at the season of Hajj and asked him, if we pay allegiance to you and you conquer your enemies, will we benefit from any share in the leadership of your community? In reply, the Prophet said, that is for God to decide. He will entrust leadership to whomever He wills. Yes? It's not just ration and intellect. It's not just hadiths. Even historical stories, he says, we find that will show that this is something that has to divinely happen. It is evident that if the issue of leadership were to be determined by the choice of the people, the Prophet would have had to say, this question pertains to the ummah and to the nation, or that it is up to the folk, to the experts of my nation to figure that out after me. He didn't say it like that. When these people came to him and said, hey, and this is in the beginning, by the way, brothers and sisters, when you really need some followers and supporters, all right, you got a whole tribe coming to you saying, we want to be your supporters. But what do they tell you? They say, like, are we going to have a share? And it makes sense, brothers and sisters. When you look at it from a materialistic perspective, let's use the stock market, for example. When you buy the shares of a company in the beginning, right? If that company really makes it and is successful, you're the one who is going to be reaping the rewards more than others who jump on the bandwagon later, right? It makes perfect sense. Here, these people understand. They say, look, we get the feeling that what you're saying is right. We get the feeling that you're going to be successful in the future. So if you defeat your enemies, and we were some of the initial shareholders of this religion, quote unquote, then will we get a bigger piece of the pie? What is the bigger piece of the pie? The fact that we will be your successors after you. The Prophet here, who needs that support right now, if it was something that could be left to others, could be left to the ummah, what would he say? He would say, fine, no problem. I need support right now. Let's get this religion on its feet. And because God doesn't want anyone, isn't interested in who is going to succeed me and lead the ummah after me, then we'll have whoever. I'll let them decide. I'll let you guys be the ones after me. He didn't say it like that though. He says that, look, this is something that Allah has to will, Allah has to decide on. Okay, so here also he says, look, in addition to all of the above, we have other